So Tin HiFi sent me the P1 Max and the T1S. This video will cover the P1 Max. Because who doesn't want to review the most expensive item first? Pretty standard look once we open the outside box, although I will say that the box is smaller than I expected. I like how they have some information papers tucked by ribbons against this leather surface. The IEMs do look pretty cool, honestly. They're actually very light in the hand. I'm not really a fan of how they just threw a bunch of the silicone ear tips into a bag. I wish they were separated, it would have been better looking, but who knows, maybe this saves the environment. On the topic of tips, none of the silicone ear tips fit me. They were all too small. I had to use the foam tips. Please, Tin HiFi, include larger tips with your earphones. The cable is pretty similar to the variations in the sense that it's straight above the Y-split and braided down below. No real complaints here. Anyways, the main problems with this earphone are the lack of sub-bass and ear gain. The treble extension is pretty good, and it is extremely smooth. I hear no harshness whatsoever using this IEM. You can tell that the vocals aren't where they're supposed to be, but again, it's not horribly offensive or anything. Well, I shouldn't even say horribly, it's not offensive at all, it sounds pretty normal. I would definitely rather use this than the Moondrop Chew because while both lack bass, the Chew has a lot of treble from 5 to 8 kHz and does not extend at all whatsoever afterwards. The treble progression in this IEM is very linear. And I mean, it is possible to get used to this. It's funny to not make a completely negative video, but I really don't have all that much to say about this. The MD4, for example, was just unbelievable. I couldn't stop raging and screaming over how bad it sounded. I don't know, it's like I said earlier, the ear gain is not there, and the sub bass, I wish it was higher. And you know me, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about magical soundstage differences or whatever. We only talk about real things on this channel. I really don't have that much to complain about. Maybe it has a little bit too much mud, but it's barely anything and could be preferable. On songs that really emphasize female vocals, this IEM does not work at all. I have to turn up the volume so high for the female vocals to sound like it's at an acceptable level. And at this point, the mud becomes overpowering. I don't want to listen this loud, you know? The upper treble definitely becomes too bright when you get the ear gain at a correct level. Like, oh my god. I know I said this was going to be a neutral review. I can't exactly recommend an IEM I myself wouldn't listen to. It's more like two problems in one, honestly. The bass doesn't really sound lacking because there's no ear gain to challenge it. It's hard to put into words how much better this is than the MD4, but that IEM literally sounded like it was $2. This sounds like a normal IEM, which somehow is a compliment. I've repeated this so many times, but it happens in every song, especially where female vocals are supposed to be the highlight. They are too recessed. Okay, let's switch to the variations. Female vocals are mostly where they're supposed to be now. Wow, I was really missing out on the sub-bass rumble, I guess. The variations is better, but it's not such a huge leap like it was for the MD4 to the variations. The most important thing, I believe, is that the P1 Max is very smooth. To conclude, my complaints are just a lack of ear gain and sub-bass. It's not the biggest deal in the world. If I was forced to listen to this IEM for a week, I would not commit suicide, which is honestly a huge compliment coming from me. My god, it's just so smooth, man. This seems to be the hardest thing. A lot of IEMs can somewhat skirt the Harmon target, but smoothness is more important to me. It's not that hard to get used to different tonalities. I'm not going to tell you to go run out and buy this IEM. No affiliate links will be used. God, it's so smooth. But yeah, if you already have this IEM, it's pretty good. There's zero peaks whatsoever in the frequency response. It's not that hard to ignore its faults when you just listen to it for a while. Drums sound very natural. Man, this is a damn good IEM. The most important thing I can say in this review of the P1 Max is that you can actually listen to the music without caring too much about how the IEM sounds. I don't hate it, nor do I love it. My position on it is purely neutral. I have high hopes for Tin HiFi in the future. This IEM just needs a few more refinements to be magical. Oh, and Tin HiFi, please make better fitting IEMs and include larger silicone ear tips.